The M4 Sherman tank stands as one of the most iconic armored vehicles in U.S. military history. Originally designed during World War II, the Sherman continued to serve American forces into the Korean War, where it played a crucial role during the early stages of the conflict. When the Korean War erupted in 1950, U.S. and Allied forces were initially caught off guard by North Korea's Soviet-supplied T-34 85 tanks. These tanks outgunned and out-armored many early American defenses. However, the rapid deployment of M4A3 E8 EZ-8 Shermans helped stabilize the battlefield. The EZ-8 variant featured improved suspension, wider tracks, and a high-velocity 76mm gun, allowing it to effectively counter the T-34. In rugged Korean terrain, marked by mountains, rivers, and narrow valleys, the Sherman proved surprisingly adaptable. Its mechanical reliability became one of its greatest strengths, especially compared to newer but less tested designs. Shermans were heavily involved in major engagements, such as the defense of the Pusan perimeter and the breakout following the Incheon landing. Infantry units relied on Sherman tanks for direct fire support, bunker destruction, and urban combat operations, while the Sherman was gradually replaced by newer tanks like the M26 Pershing and M46 Patton. It remained in service throughout much of the Korean War, due to logistical familiarity and ease of maintenance. In Vietnam, the Sherman saw very limited use, mainly by Allied forces rather than frontline U.S. Army units. Some were transferred to South Vietnamese forces early in the war, primarily for training and static defense roles. By the mid-1960s, however, Shermans were fully phased out in favor of more modern armor. The legacy of the M4 Sherman is not defined by perfection, but by reliability, adaptability, and sheer presence across multiple wars. It bridged the gap between World War II and the Cold War battlefield, proving that a well-designed vehicle can outlive its era. The M26 Pershing represented America's answer to the limitations exposed during World War II tank combat. Designed as a heavy tank, the Pershing entered service too late for World War II but became a critical asset during the Korean War. When U.S. forces first encountered North Korean T-34 85 tanks in 1950, it became clear that older medium tanks were at a disadvantage. The Pershing, armed with a powerful 90mm gun, provided a decisive edge in tank-on-tank combat. One of the most famous tank duels of the Korean War occurred when M26 Pershings engaged and destroyed multiple T-34s, proving their superior firepower and armor protection. Unlike the Sherman, the Pershing could withstand frontal hits while delivering devastating counterfire. However, the Korean terrain posed challenges. The Pershing was heavy and less mobile in mountainous regions, and its engine was underpowered for its weight. These limitations affected operational flexibility, especially in muddy or steep environments. Despite this, the Pershing excelled in defensive operations and breakthrough assaults. Its thick armor allowed it to spearhead attacks against fortified positions and support infantry advances under heavy fire. As the war progressed, the Pershing was gradually replaced by the M46 Patton, which combined the Pershing's firepower with improved mobility. Still, the M26's combat performance directly influenced the design philosophy of future American main battle tanks. The Pershing marked a turning point, signaling America's shift toward heavily armed, armor-dominant battlefield doctrine during the Cold War era. The M113 armored personnel carrier is one of the most important and widely used vehicles of the Vietnam War. Unlike tanks designed for direct combat, the M113 was built to transport infantry safely across hostile terrain. Yet in Vietnam, it often found itself on the front lines. Introduced in the early 1960s, the M113 featured lightweight aluminum armor, amphibious capability, and excellent cross-country mobility. These features made it ideal for Vietnam's jungles, rice paddies, and river systems. Initially intended as a battle taxi, the M113 quickly evolved into a combat platform. Soldiers mounted 50 caliber machine guns on top, and crews often fought exposed, standing in the open hatch to improve visibility and firepower, a dangerous but necessary adaptation. M113s were heavily used during search and destroy missions, convoy escorts, and rapid troop deployments. Their ability to move infantry quickly under fire transformed battlefield tactics. However, the vehicle was not without flaws. Its aluminum armor offered limited protection against mines, RPGs, and heavy machine gun fire. Ambushes often proved deadly, forcing crews to add improvised armor and tactical modifications. Despite vulnerabilities, the M113 became the backbone of mechanized operations in Vietnam and continued to serve globally for decades. Its design influenced countless armored vehicles worldwide. The M113 symbolized modern mobile warfare, where speed, adaptability, and troop protection mattered as much as firepower. The M46 Patton tank marked a critical evolution in American armored warfare during the Korean War. Developed as an improvement over the M26 Pershing, the M46 addressed one of its predecessor's greatest weaknesses: mobility. Entering service in late 1950, the M46 was equipped with a more powerful engine and improved transmission, allowing it to navigate Korea's mountainous terrain far more effectively. Despite retaining the same 90mm main gun as the Pershing, the M46 proved to be a more balanced and reliable combat vehicle. The Korean battlefield demanded adaptability. Steep hills, narrow roads, and muddy valleys challenged heavy armor daily. The M46 excelled in these conditions, providing both direct fire support for infantry and effective counter-armor capability against North Korean and Chinese forces. Although tank-versus-tank combat became less common as the war progressed, the M46 found extensive use in destroying bunkers, artillery positions, and enemy fortifications. Its firepower was especially valuable during defensive actions along the 38th parallel. Crew survivability improved thanks to better internal layout and improved armor protection. The M46 also introduced refinements that would shape future Patton series tanks, including better fire control and more reliable mechanical systems. By the end of the Korean War, the M46 had established itself as the US Army's primary medium tank, bridging the gap between World War II designs and modern Cold War armor doctrine. The M48 Patton became one of the most dominant American armored vehicles of the Vietnam War. Designed during the early Cold War, the M48 was built for large-scale armored conflict, yet it found itself operating in jungles, villages, and dense terrain far removed from its original purpose. Armed with a powerful 90mm gun and thick armor, the M48 was often used as a mobile artillery platform. In Vietnam, tanks rarely faced enemy armor. Instead, they provided infantry support, base defense, and convoy security. The Patton's psychological impact on the battlefield was immense. Its firepower could shatter fortified positions, collapse bunkers, and clear jungle paths. The presence of an M48 often forced enemy forces to withdraw before direct engagement. However, Vietnam exposed the tank's vulnerabilities. Dense jungle limited maneuverability, while landmines and RPG ambushes posed constant threats. Crews adapted by adding extra armor, sandbags, and external storage to increase survivability. Despite these challenges, the M48 remained highly effective when used in combined arms operations. Its durability and firepower saved countless infantry lives during assaults and defensive operations. The M48 Patton stands as a symbol of American heavy armor adapting to unconventional warfare, proving that tanks still mattered even in guerrilla conflicts. The M551 Sheridan was one of the most unconventional armored vehicles ever deployed by the United States, and Vietnam was its true test. Designed as a lightweight, air-droppable tank for airborne forces, the Sheridan emphasized mobility over armor protection. Equipped with a 152mm gun launcher, capable of firing both conventional rounds and guided missiles, the Sheridan represented an ambitious leap in tank technology. However, its advanced systems often proved unreliable in combat conditions. In Vietnam, the Sheridan's light weight allowed it to traverse terrain inaccessible to heavier tanks. It was used extensively for fire support, reconnaissance, and base defense. Infantry units valued its ability to deliver powerful high-explosive rounds against enemy positions. Despite its advantages, the Sheridan suffered from serious vulnerabilities. Thin aluminum armor offered little protection against mines and RPGs. Explosive ammunition storage further increased the risk to crews. Nevertheless, the Sheridan remained in service throughout the Vietnam War. Due to its unique role, it filled a niche no other vehicle could, combining mobility, air transportability, and heavy firepower. The M551 Sheridan stands as a bold experiment, one that influenced future armored vehicle development despite its shortcomings. The M114 reconnaissance vehicle was developed to fulfill a critical but dangerous role on the modern battlefield, scouting enemy positions ahead of main forces. Introduced in the early 1960s, the M114 was a lightweight, tracked armored vehicle intended to replace older reconnaissance platforms. In theory, the M114 offered several advantages. Its aluminum armor made it light enough for rapid deployment, while its tracked suspension allowed it to traverse rough terrain more effectively than wheeled vehicles. It was armed with a mounted machine gun providing basic defensive capability. However, Vietnam quickly exposed the weaknesses of the M114. Dense jungle, narrow trails, and frequent ambushes made reconnaissance missions extremely hazardous. The vehicle's engine was underpowered, and its mechanical reliability was poor in hot, humid conditions. Visibility was another major issue. Limited observation ports restricted situational awareness, often preventing crews from detecting ambushes in time. Mines and booby traps posed a constant threat, and the M114's thin armor offered little protection against explosions. Despite these flaws, the M114 was deployed extensively during the mid-1960s. Recon units relied on speed, coordination, and infantry support to compensate for the vehicle's limitations. Ultimately, the M114 was considered a failure, leading to its replacement by more capable reconnaissance vehicles in later years. Its service in Vietnam serves as a lesson in the importance of matching vehicle design to real battlefield conditions, not just theoretical requirements. The M151 MUT, commonly known as the military jeep of the Vietnam War, became one of the most recognizable vehicles of the conflict. Designed as a replacement for the iconic World War II Willys Jeep, the M151 reflected modern military needs for speed, versatility, and light transport. Unlike its predecessor, the M151 featured independent suspension, which improved ride comfort and off-road mobility. It was used for command transport, reconnaissance, medical evacuation, and convoy escort duties throughout Vietnam. The MUT excelled in speed and maneuverability, allowing it to navigate narrow jungle roads and rapidly redeploy personnel. Armed variants often carried mounted machine guns, giving light units mobile firepower. However, the M151 had a dangerous flaw. Its suspension design made it prone to rollovers, especially during sharp turns or high-speed travel. Many accidents occurred, leading to serious injuries and fatalities. Despite this, the MUT remained indispensable. Commanders relied on it for communication and coordination, while troops depended on it for daily operations. Its adaptability made it one of the most heavily used vehicles of the war. The M151 MUT symbolizes the logistical backbone of U.S. forces in Vietnam. Fast, flexible, and constantly exposed to danger. The M35 Deuce and a half was not a weapon of destruction, but it was absolutely essential to American military success in both the Korean and Vietnam Wars. As a 21.5-ton cargo truck, the M35 served as the backbone of U.S. logistics. Capable of transporting troops, ammunition, fuel, and supplies, the M35 operated in some of the harshest conditions imaginable. In Korea, it navigated frozen mountain roads and muddy valleys. In Vietnam, it faced jungles, monsoons, and constant ambush threats. Convoy operations were among the most dangerous missions of the war. Enemy forces frequently targeted supply routes with mines and small arms fire. Despite minimal armor, M35 drivers pushed forward, knowing that frontline units depended on them. Many M35s were modified into gun trucks, fitted with mounted machine guns and improvised armor. These gun trucks became legendary for their role in defending convoys and returning fire during ambushes. The reliability of the M35 was its greatest strength. Its simple mechanical design allowed quick field repairs, keeping supply lines operational under constant threat. Without the M35, modern warfare would have ground to a halt. It stands as a tribute to the unsung logistics crews whose courage sustained combat operations across 2 wars. The M42 Duster was originally designed to counter enemy aircraft, but in Vietnam, it became something entirely different, a devastating ground support weapon. Built on the chassis of the M41 Walker Bulldog tank, the M42 featured twin 40mm Bofors cannons capable of delivering overwhelming firepower. By the time the Duster arrived in Vietnam, enemy air threats were minimal. Instead of engaging aircraft, the M42 was repurposed for base defense, convoy escort, and infantry support. Its rapid-fire cannons proved terrifyingly effective against enemy troop concentrations. During night operations, Dusters earned a fearsome reputation. Their tracers illuminated the battlefield, creating walls of fire that could halt enemy assaults. Viet Cong and North Vietnamese forces often avoided areas protected by M42 units. Despite its effectiveness, the Duster had weaknesses. It lacked radar, relying on visual targeting, and its armor was thin. Crews were exposed and vulnerable to ambushes. Still, the psychological impact of the M42 cannot be overstated. It became one of the most feared vehicles on the battlefield, not because it was modern, but because it was brutally effective. The M728 Combat Engineer Vehicle was a specialized armored platform designed to support infantry and engineers in the most dangerous combat environments. Built on the M60 tank chassis, it combined heavy armor with unique engineering tools. Armed with a short-barrel 165mm demolition gun, the M728 was designed to destroy bunkers, clear obstacles, and breach fortified positions. In Vietnam, it became invaluable during jungle operations and base construction. The vehicle featured a powerful dozer blade for clearing paths through dense vegetation and removing enemy obstacles. Its crane allowed for heavy lifting, mine removal, and field repairs under fire. Although not intended for direct combat, the M728 often found itself under enemy attack. Its heavy armor provided excellent protection, allowing it to operate where lighter vehicles could not. The M728 represented the often overlooked importance of combat engineers, units responsible not just for building but for surviving and fighting in hostile environments. The LVT-P5 was a massive amphibious assault vehicle, used primarily by the U.S. Marine Corps during the Vietnam War. Designed for ship-to-shore operations, it allowed Marines to land troops and equipment directly onto hostile beaches, capable of carrying over 30 troops. The LVT-P5 combined amphibious capability with armored protection. Its track design allowed it to transition from water to land seamlessly. In Vietnam, the vehicle supported riverine and coastal operations, particularly in delta regions. It played a key role in amphibious assaults and troop transport in areas inaccessible to wheeled vehicles. However, the LVT-P5 was slow and mechanically complex. Its large size made it a prominent target, and its thin armor offered limited protection against anti-tank weapons. Despite these drawbacks, the LVT-P5 laid the foundation for future amphibious assault vehicles, influencing designs that remain in service today. The M41 Walker Bulldog was developed to replace the aging World War II-era light tanks and provide U.S. forces with a fast, mobile reconnaissance and fire support vehicle. Named after General Walton H. Walker, the tank entered service during the final stages of the Korean War. Weighing far less than medium tanks like the Pershing or Patton, the M41 emphasized speed, agility, and firepower. Armed with a 76mm gun, it was capable of engaging enemy armor, fortified positions, and infantry targets with impressive accuracy. In Korea, the M41 performed reconnaissance missions, screened larger armored formations, and provided rapid response fire support. Its speed made it ideal for hit-and-run tactics, especially in the rugged and unpredictable terrain of the peninsula. Although it arrived too late to significantly influence the Korean War, the Bulldog proved reliable and mechanically sound. These qualities led to its continued use into the early years of the Vietnam War. In Vietnam, the M41 was primarily used by South Vietnamese forces with U.S. support. It excelled in patrols and base defense, but struggled against mines and ambushes due to its relatively light armor. The Walker Bulldog represents the final evolution of classic light tank doctrine before reconnaissance roles shifted toward armored vehicles and helicopters. The M67 Flamethrower Tank was one of the most feared vehicles used by U.S. forces during the Vietnam War, not because of its armor or speed, but because of its psychological impact. Built on the chassis of the M48 Patton tank, the M67 replaced the main gun with a flamethrower capable of projecting burning fuel hundreds of feet. Its purpose was clear: destroy bunkers, tunnels, and fortified enemy positions that conventional weapons struggled to eliminate. In Vietnam's dense jungle and extensive tunnel networks, flamethrower tanks proved devastatingly effective. Enemy fighters often abandoned positions at the mere sight of an approaching M67. The weapon's use, however, came with controversy. Flamethrowers caused immense destruction and were psychologically traumatic for both enemy combatants and friendly troops operating nearby. From a tactical standpoint, the M67 was highly specialized. It required heavy escort and careful deployment due to its limited range and vulnerable fuel system. Though used sparingly, the M67 played a critical role in clearing heavily defended areas, demonstrating how specialized vehicles can decisively shape battlefield outcomes. The M274 Mechanical Mule may have been one of the smallest vehicles in the Vietnam War, but its impact was enormous. Designed as a lightweight cargo carrier, the Mule was created to support infantry in terrain where larger vehicles could not operate. With its flatbed design and simple mechanical layout, the M274 could transport ammunition, supplies, wounded soldiers, and equipment across jungle paths, hills, and muddy trails. It could be airdropped or transported by helicopter, making it ideal for airborne and special forces. The Mule was lightly powered and unarmored, leaving crews completely exposed. Yet its low profile and quiet operation made it less detectable than larger vehicles. Infantry units relied heavily on the mechanical mule during extended patrols and remote operations. It reduced physical strain on soldiers and increased operational endurance. The M274 represents the unsung heroes of warfare, logistics vehicles that rarely receive attention but are essential to mission success. Without vehicles like the Mule, modern infantry operations would be impossible.